Now, for the next panel, we have Brian T.K. Lee as a moderator for how VCs navigate investment opportunities in 2019.
Hello. Hi, everyone. So today, a lot happened in the crypto space over the past 2 years, and I'm sure, especially as an investor, there's a lot of perspective has been changed, especially towards ICO. Now there's STO, right? So now we have 4 VCs invited, and then they're gonna share their opinion towards this market right now, what sort of stage we're in, and is ICO here to stay? Is STO becoming mature in the near future? So.
Yeah, so
okay.
It's going to be a really interesting panel because we obviously I've known Brian for quite some time, and some of the panelists here are really going to share some really incredible insights. Yo, what's up, man? Okay, so now we have Jason Fang, founder of Sora Ventures, coming up the stage, and we have a few more panelists waiting up to get mic'd up, and now we just have Harian Yu, partner at Vision Capital. And we have Alexei Antonov, founder of Suicide Venture, and Sabrina Tagija, head of investment on Unblock Ventures of Line Corporation. And thank you. Please give it up for our panelist and moderator.
Okay, so perhaps we shall start by briefly introducing ourselves and the company. Alex, do you want to start?
Yeah, hello. My name is Alexei Antonov, founder of SCD Venture Company. Since 2016, we invested in plenty of ICOs. Some managed ourselves, invested in equity, trading tokens, now doing algo, and I hope there is not much of in crypto that we don't do in Russia.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Tagija. I'm with Unblock Ventures. It's Line's investment company focusing on blockchain and crypto investment. We're a fairly new team. We've been live since last year and active since last year.
Hi everyone, I'm Harian Yu. You can call my intern by Anne. I'm from Vision Capital. We're based in Hong Kong. We are a token fund. We founded actually last year. We invest into some ICOs and some equities project like Blockchain, Ethereum. We also the one who merged Huobi Pro with the public main board Hong Kong company.
Hi, my name is Jason Fang. I joined the industry in early 2016. I also founded Sora Ventures in early 2018. So our strategy is basically we do 2 things. We incubate projects in Asia, and then a lot of these projects are usually what we call reverse ICOs, and at the same time we're doing equity and ICO investments.
Cool. So I think in 2018 we see the bear market, the huge drop in cryptocurrency. It also comes with the failure in ICO, this ICO fundraising model. Do you still see, as an investor in ICO, I'm sure all of us here have invested in or advised in some of the ICOs, do you still see ICO as a viable fundraising model, or do you see it coming back in the near future or in the future?
I think that it's not an ICO failure model, it's just like the market getting smarter, and there's no money that you really don't need, and you don't want to invest that in ICO. It's not the problem of model, it's the problem of the wrong estimation of the investments. When we'll go back to the project that could run on some certain business parameters, and on the project that could raise, you see like now on Binance, some project planning to raise like 3 to 6 million, and that makes sense, and I think that's kind of ICO back in the game. So it's not a failure. It's obviously the bubble was busted. So some guys think about STOs. We'll talk about that probably later. But ICO is not. It was like when we first do an ICOs in 2017 and 2016, it was like the community-driven projects, which was backed by developers and funded by basically users. And now when the market changed, the big players come in, they were more structured, more wise, more organized. The project stopped being crowd-funded. They became owned by several huge funds or whales, so that was the issue and the problem with ICOs, not the model itself.
Yeah, I think we're shifting to a more traditional model of fundraising. Not that ICOs are going to completely go away, but there's less fundraising happening early on, and it makes more sense. I mean, it's going to be much more similar going forward to the traditional tech VC type fundraising, and we're already seeing the offering change, and we're also seeing more equity or equity plus tokens. It's I think we're going to a much more reasonable model going forward.
I see. Do you have anything to add, Jason?
Well, so my background is I also was one of the early employees from Bushi Capital, so I've always been based in Shanghai, China. I think you gotta look at two ways. In the US, for example, the US and China market has always been very different. Regardless of ICO, the fact that you can fundraise from anywhere, it's always been different. So back then we saw that a lot of ICO was mostly in protocols. I think moving forward, at least in the US, we're seeing that we're shifting a lot more from these ICO investments into equity investments. But in China, we're seeing a shift, which is a lot of these ICO, so-called ICO or blockchain projects are working with liquidity funds. And that's quite unique because back then there wasn't it wasn't necessary to work with liquidity funds because basically if you get listed on a top exchange, then there's naturally retailers to buy a token. Nowadays, there's a lot more interest in working with liquidity funds, and for that reasons, it's more about knowing the projects and knowing the insider information. Although I must say that insider information, is basically illegal in many jurisdictions. But because our industry is so early, we're still seeing that people are taking advantage of a lot of these insider information and seeing which project actually has liquidity pool. And the ones that actually do have, we've seen has done really, really well in China.
I see. So given the current state of the crypto market, have you shifted your investment strategy towards like ICO or just cryptocurrency in general?
Yeah, for us, for sure. I mean, we start off, I started investing in early 2016, even before we had ERC20. Back then it was, you can invest in color coin. Basically, from our perspective, we start off with primary market. We fundraise from a lot of strategic investors, even from the top 20 coins. And we've been managing a lot of them. But what we realized that moving forward, there's a lot more. The market has shifted, and if you want to do well in the space, you got to have multiple strategies for that. And a big part of that is understanding your exit a lot earlier than before you invest. So again, that's like going back to what I was saying. If you're doing early investment into certain ICO projects, it's less about the product, it's less about the team. It's probably more about knowing your exit strategy. And that's true. I think it's true for in the equity world. I think it's also true in if you're working on ICO. Apparently, that was just not the case last year because there was a lot of demand for ICO. But for us, we definitely shifted more towards secondary, and we've been looking into doing certain different what we call strategies. But a lot of these strategies would not work unless you have. Especially in Asia, it's not as effective unless you have relationship with exchanges, and even now that's a case for primary market and for secondary market.
Well, I feel like ICO to us is just a concept of financial mechanism. So there's no difference of like investing into ICO or investing into like crypto projects. So I think the most important for us to look at projects, they have real applications, they have real fundamental values, and so we really looking at project which decentralized, really making sense, and this thing can really help the community to grow up. So of course, access is very important as well, and the high return is very important as well. But for now, I think the market after last year's craziness, the market now is more reasonable, and we can see more good and real project coming up. Yes.
Yeah, I think we've shifted actually quite a bit. Originally, we were set up to do exclusively token investments, and of course, the market has changed a lot. The return profile has changed a lot. The time frame for returns is not what we expect it to be. It's going to be more similar, I think, to equity going forward. So we are learning to be more flexible. to consider more different types of deals, more hybrid, like equity plus token and such. So definitely, it's been a very dynamic past few months, and the way we're looking at projects now is we're also a bit more conservative because of the current conditions.
We stopped investing in ICOs in the beginning of 2018, probably. In 2018, also we invested in ICOs only when we got a stake in equity, so it was part in case something goes wrong and everything go wrong, basically, on that year. So we have our equity part, so we don't have more than 10–15% of altcoins in portfolio just at all, because it became mathematically wrong even if you try to do some pre-sale or some tricky schemes or something with exchanges. It becomes too risky. So
yeah, I think yeah, I totally agree with you guys. I think when you invest in ICO, you really have to mix it with, you need to have the expertise in secondary market trading as well as the venture capitalist knowledge as well. So let's talk a bit about STO, right? I think a lot of people have been talking about this space, like whether STO will be the next catalyst for this market. So as I said, many people think STO will bring a lot of money, new money into the market. Do you think that's the case? Like, do you think if that's the case, then what sort of things that need to happen in order to reach that point?
So I think that depends on the investor's fund structure. For example, if you look at the past two years, anyone who invests in ICO basically want to, like, fast returns. We're talking about an investment cycle within less than 6 months, which means that if you're going to do something on a fund structure level, a lot of times they choose something called an open-ended fund. If you're doing something called a closed-ended fund, that's more on the equity side. So basically, you have you can basically, when you're calling capital, you have a much longer investment period. And for that reason, you're able to take certain risks. For example, I'm able to invest in equity, and I'm able to hold it for 10 years. But if you're doing open fund, a lot of that is less than 2 years, which means that automatically reduce a lot of things that, a lot of the potential investments that would basically force you to be in a liquid state. And that's what we're seeing right now. I mean, if you look at most of the US funds, for example, Metastable, Pantera, and a lot of other funds, most of them are open-ended funds, and they have less than 2 years lockup. If you're investing in equity, for example, you're expecting for at least a 4-year lockup. So if your investors are asking for redemption, which is basically asking for money in return, then you have nothing to give back to them, and that puts them in a very tough spot. So I think that going back to STOs, it really boils to my understanding. I think STO is still more towards more of a illiquid side, which from fund perspective, you got to have side pockets for that. And to many, if you understand how funds, open-ended fund or hedge funds work, it's usually you don't have that many side pockets in a liquid fund. So that basically is a limitation for open-ended fund to invest in STOs. The second part is, I think regardless of if you're doing real estate investment STO or a I don't know, like a fund structure STO, in the end, it doesn't really change the product, right? It's just changed how you distribute your tokens, and you still have to go back to a question of, like, how do I exit? Is there going to be true liquidity in there? And even if you make the claim that, okay, there's going to be decentralized exchanges out there, there's going to be STO exchanges out there, in the end, you got to be practical. And if you're buying most of our investments, we're talking about $500,000 to like $3 million USD. Even at that level, we find it difficult to exit on if we were investing in STO. So these are the things we look at. So I mean, these are very practical things we're looking at. Even before we talk about investment, we talk about the team. Before we look at the product, these are things as a fund manager you got to understand what you're going for.
Alex, do you have any?
Yeah, sure. We spent a lot of time last summer on STOs and studying the industry, and we think that it won't become the next big thing. It won't be the same as ICOs, because on practice now, you basically can't sell it to anyone because no one wants to buy something, as you say, illiquid. There is pretty much no market. You got open finance with probably 4 assets to trade and no liquidity. You got plenty of firms that want to do STO for someone, want to do it like a service. You got plenty of exchanges, but you don't really have any projects, and you don't have investors who will be interested in that. That's because securitizing or tokenizing, let's say you want to tokenize real estate. In terms of selling that to investors, it will be as much hard as selling the regular asset. And in terms of legal framework and structure, it will be much harder. So there is no point to tokenize anything for now, because if there will be some new regulation vehicles that could provide us, let's say, some magical liquidity from regular markets or some new rules, there will be a boom. But everyone who do STO now try to fit it in the legal framework that already exists, and it's not, basically it's not fit. So we just do complicated stuff, but no one wants to buy.
I think when it comes to STO, there's definitely a lot of barriers, like regulation, like technology, and also like education barrier. It's kind of like a chicken and egg problem, right? There's no liquidity, there's no STO, there's no STO, there's no liquidity, right? Are you guys like looking into this space right now as from an investor, or have you seen any like interesting projects like using one of the applications of STOs right now?
We've been looking also quite closely at STOs, and same remarks as what Jason brought up. Liquidity is an issue. Listing, the regulatory framework isn't completely there. So we've just been watching for now, and we've seen some interesting projects. We've also seen some projects that kind of rebranded their ICO into an STO and don't necessarily have a strong rationale as to why. So a little bit of a kind of a buzz, trying to ride that buzz wave. But I doubt that it's really going to be the second coming of ICOs.
So actually, all the partners from Fission actually have years of experience working in classic investment. So no matter ICO or STO, whatever they call it, we think it is just a concept, just a frame to, of the financial mechanism. So we think it's more important to look at things like long term. Definitely, we have looking at a lot of STO projects, but in a good way, they're regulated. They're regulated ISO projects, right? But now we don't see anything that is very mature for these things to trade. We don't see there's a mature STO exchange, and also there's no mature legal framework to protect all the investors. So I think still blockchain. Me as an investor, I interned this project, this market in 2013. So back there was a really small and cozy community, and everybody here is because they out of interest. We think this is really cool. Maybe the thing can change the world. Maybe the thing can build a new economy. So I think instead of looking at ICO or STO, all these terms, more important is we should look at the projects. We should find the project with a solid team, with their solid technology, and also we need to wait for a few years instead of really trying to find the liquidity in a really short time. I understand there are terms for fund to close, but also we should give more time to their products to develop. Right?
I see. So what do you guys think would be the first batch of IC application for STO? So people are saying STO you can apply on everything, everything you can just do an STO on it. But what do you think is the ideal asset class for doing STOs? There's the obvious real estate, stuff like that.
I think you mentioned the real world assets, and there are some difficulties in terms of the logistics, right? So it's not always practical to tokenize a building, for example, because who's going to manage it? But things like funds, I mean, those have already been if there's a few good examples of funds that have been tokenized, then the good thing is it lowers the entry ticket into buying into a fund, for example. So I think that's a good example. It's still very financial. Yeah.
So it's less of saying that, hey, we want to do a protocol, but we look at things that already exist and see what makes sense. And I think the fact is it's okay to not have 100% decentralized products. Where in the past, if you talk on the Bitcoin Talk, if you look at other forums, if you look at Steemit, if you look at Reddit, if you're not 100% decentralized, you're hated. People hate you for doing that. And it's kind of in my opinion, it doesn't really make sense because most developers don't have money. Well, most available internet doesn't have money. It's the funds and the retailers that have money. So why are you trying to satisfy those guys, but you can go for these guys that actually, these are actually like real users that you work with. You can use your token in the real application. That's what you generate for both sides, your equity and to your to community. And what's interesting is back in the days, like 2 years ago, you couldn't do that. 2 years ago, if you try to like put cryptocurrency into your balance sheet, your accounting people will be like, what is that? Like, what is this? Is money or what, right? But nowadays, we're seeing some portfolio companies putting cryptocurrency as an asset to increase their valuation in their Series A or Series B, this is changing, right? And if that actually makes sense, then a lot more people will start going for these reverse ICOs that basically you got to try to produce some form of real value in the token, and then over time they can get a third party to evaluate how much money you can actually generate that's actually sustainable, and to put that in the books, and that would actually increase your valuation in your equity company. And I think that's innovation within finance.
Well, what I think about right now is one is RegTech. So I think regulation is very important right now because we need to protect all the investors. So RegTech not only including regulation, but also like security, like auditing and all that. I know Japan is launched and like an official announcement is about all their exchanges and ICO project listing on the exchanges has to have a third-party auditing partner, like every quarter. So I think this is a really healthy way to lead the way. And second, I think is Lightning Network, because I feel like ICO is not like ICO. The thing is something kind of like everybody know what blockchain is. But right now, if we want to use a cryptocurrency, it is still hard. It takes a really long time to pay or to transfer some value or information. So I think Lightning Network is the next thing to really make the blockchain technology apply to everybody's life. Yeah.
My focus from the start has been a mass adoption. That hasn't really changed, and my methods, I mean, haven't changed that much because I think we're just focusing on the fundamentals. I think the verticals that have the most potential, I mean, Jason mentioned gaming. That's definitely something that the users they're familiar with digital items, so it's a no-brainer. Still quite bullish on fintech. It may not be the most unattainable parts of fintech, which are very regulated, but I think it will start with things like points, rewards, gift cards, like the unregulated part of payments. I think this is like a lower bar to get into that market, and then going all the way to a proper, more regulated space.
I see. I'll be quick. We operate now. We polarize our portfolio in some way. Either it's very down-to-earth projects like the understandable revenue and business process like payment system for restaurants. Either it's very intelligent-heavy systems like something where we can have our edge, like have cost-efficient developers in Moscow or Ukraine and so on. So we won't try to compete with some huge companies which could overturn all the market. Like, let's say you won't ever want to create crypto messenger until there's Telegram and WeChat and all that kind of guys. So we try to be very simple and calculatable or very scientific.
I see. So we have like 3 minutes left. My last question is, what do you think the year 2019 will be? Like last year, people say it's the year of institution money, right? But this year, I heard the term, it's called corporate coin year. So there's like JP Morgan coin, Facebook coin coming out. So what do you guys think? What do you guys 2019 will be like for crypto or blockchain?
Yeah, I agree. I think, well, in my opinion, I think those are all reverse ICOs. Whether JP Morgan does a coin, or Facebook launch a coin, or Telegram launch a coin, or BitTorrent launch a coin, it's still an existing company launching a token as a strategy for them to fundraise or for their own ecosystem, right? So for sure, I'm very bullish on that, and we're still talking to existing companies who are probably in the Series C later stage. We call it late stage companies that want to launch a token. We help them incubate that.
Forgot to mention, Line also has a coin, Line coin. Link.
Link, yes.
Link, that's right.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree. Like last year, we saw some of the big tech companies kind of enter the space and shake things around a bit. And I think this year is going to be a year of, after a Cambrian explosion of projects, is going to be a year of consolidation. You'll see more projects gravitate around the big platforms. That's what I'm expecting to see. Hopefully, Line will be one of them.
I think stablecoin is still like a thing. We need a safe and real stablecoin. Also DApps, right? Yes, these two things.
Yeah, I'm also putting my bet on decentralized financial services. It's not only exchanges, but like literally everything, giving loans, all predicting markets and all that kind of stuff. I think it will be huge. It not has much of focus now because it's transparent. You can't, you know, operate like a casino like major exchanges do now. But it's a transparent future, and then people will receive ability to transfer money rapidly, like through writing on something. I think it will be next boom. So focus on decentralized thing, guys. It will be back again.
Do you see STO coming this year, or do you think like people are expecting STO a bit too early?
A bit too early. I think people thinking of STOs as of something new, but it's just you know, the form of legal service.
Okay, I see. Well, thank you very much, guys. I think that's it
Thank
for
you.
us. Thank you.
Thank you for our panelists and Moderator on sharing their insights on the investment opportunities in the coming years, especially from a VC standpoint. I do have talked about, you know, when we think about ICO, you think about Ethereum for mainly the catalyst of ICOs.